got the slides, Miguel.
All right, awesome. I'll get started here then. And let me find my pointer. I am going to move our chat over here. So, and thank you, Nathaniel Amen, for your help in moderating. So, hi team, my name is Miguel Corteguera, and I am a Senior Technical Program Manager. I'm part of our Modern Work customer success team. And the Q's app and contact center in general is one area that I've been focused on. So today what we have for you is kind of two main parts. One is we're going to talk about what is the Q's app, talk about requirements. There's always a lot of questions on licensing and what combination of things I can have. We'll talk about positioning a little bit. There were some questions yesterday on the Dynamics 365 Contact Center session about positioning, and I do have a slide here and some guidance here. And then we're going to jump over to deployment and experiences. So we'll see what it takes to deploy, configure the Q's app, a couple of gotchas and things to watch out for. And we'll take a couple of looks at videos that have the different experiences from the admin perspective, from the supervisor perspective, and from the agent perspective. And then I'll share some resources, and then we'll do a bit of Q&A. And we'll call it a day after that. So what is the Q's app? So the Q's app is an enhancement that we made to Teams that we just released in October. And it's called the Q's app primarily because there's a new app in Team called Q's, which gives you additional functionality on top of the existing auto attendant, and especially on the call queue side. So this is one important thing from a high level consideration perspective. It's not like this brand new from scratch way to do contact center in Teams. It's taking the existing functionality that existed there with call queues and with auto attendants, and it's giving you additional features and functionality on top of that for reporting, for monitoring agents, for seeing what's going on. And we'll take a look at that in the next couple slides here. Let's take a quick look at a video for anyone that has not seen it.
As customer care continues to evolve, every customer-facing professional, from sales to service, requires tools designed to meet their changing needs. Introducing the Q's app for Microsoft Teams, a powerful addition to your Teams experience that extends the customer engagement capabilities of your organization. With the Q's app, your team can collaboratively handle customer calls quickly and easily within the flow of work. Users can monitor and respond to calls in their queues directly in Teams, eliminating app switching for seamless call handling. Built-in call controls enable more collaborative care, leading to faster resolution and happier customers. And users can make outgoing calls on behalf of the queue they are working on. But it's not just about calls. The Q's app gives leads the flexibility to assemble and manage teams and prioritize call queues. Whether opting in or opting out users, or utilizing delegated admin capabilities, they can optimize the experience according to performance and business needs. With the ability to monitor and coach users within the app, leads can boost competence and confidence. Additionally, real-time and historical reporting provide metrics that give users and leads insights needed to ensure quality customer care. No matter who you are in the company, every interaction shapes the customer experience. Let's make it extraordinary. Connect with your Microsoft representative today to learn how you can be part of this revolution.
All right, so let's dive into some of the features. One thing I wanted to point out at a high level, a couple other benefits of the Q's app. First is you're natively leveraging it within Teams. So this is something that's important both from an admin perspective as well as a user perspective. It's not like you're going off to some other app that's somewhere else in some portal. All of the configuration is done via Teams Admin Center. And then for those users that are already using Teams and leveraging and familiar with it, they can take advantage of it right in that same context. Along with that, you can leverage collaboration within teams. So for agents to interact with peers, with folks in the back office or other areas, subject matter experts, to engage with content in SharePoint, to leverage Copilot. We'll see that towards the end in the agent video. And then also the third piece is from an admin perspective, you're leveraging Microsoft 365 and Teams for the same interface, for the same resiliency, for all the same compliance features and all of that good stuff. Now, jumping into the feature side of it, I work along with a couple of other folks in my team, and we take a look at feature requests every day that come in from the field, from folks like Donald and Jonathan, and their requests that come in from customers like all of you sitting out there in the audience and our partners. And some of the biggest feature requests for call queues and auto attendance that we've seen over the last many years are being addressed by the call queues application and that functionality. Biggest one that I'll call out here is the access to real-time visibility and reporting. So this is a huge gap we've had with call queues for a long time. So if you were an agent or a supervisor, even more importantly, you logged in and you had no idea what was going on in terms of call volume. You could have had one or two callers in queue, or you could have had 50. It was kind of like driving a car with no dashboard, right? There was nothing to see out there. So that is a huge feature that we've delivered as part of the Queues app functionality. So now if I'm an agent, I log in for the day, and if I'm in a small team where it's just me and my peers managing ourselves, we can see what's going on. I can see which of my peers are online. If there's 10 calls in queue, maybe I can go and reach out to others for additional help, or I know that I'm going to be heads down taking calls, or the other way around. What if there's no calls, it's a pretty light call volume, and all my peers are online, or a few of them are online? I know I can go take a break, or maybe go do something else, go to lunch. So it gives the agents the ability to better, like self-manage calls. But then even more importantly, from a supervisor perspective, if you have a larger team where you have someone that's acting in a supervisor or a lead, you'll see us using those terms interchangeably in the documentation and some of the presentations, like supervisors or leads. Someone that really cares about making sure calls get answered in the right time and providing a good experience. That person can now have visibility into what's going on, the call volume for the day, the experience the callers are receiving. The other enhancement that we made from a reporting perspective is on historical reporting. Now, historical reporting for queues and auto attendants and agents has been available for a long time, but it was delivered separately. It was a Power BI template they had to go run. So it was out there, but it was another inconvenience, another point of friction for end users and even for admins that had to support it. Now with the Queues app, you have access to both real-time and historical. You see the little tabs up here. I know that they're very small on this slideshow, but you'll see it in some of the videos I'll be showing. So it's nice to have that functionality built in, and to also have it controlled via access policies, and we'll definitely take a deep look at those. The other thing that is a major improvement for the Queues app is the delegation of permissions. So the challenge we've had with this ever since the early days of auto attendant and call queues is that the IT admin would configure them, and then something happened, right, where in just a normal course of business or throughout the years, announcements need to be changed, holiday schedules change, routing for like out of office, or when you're shut down changes. And the challenge here is that users would have to call their IT department or put in a ticket or something like that to be able to get those settings changed. So the users weren't happy. The admins weren't happy because, as an admin, the last thing you want to do is get a bunch of tickets, especially around the holidays, right, to to start changing things and then get tickets again at the beginning of the year for just like, tedious work. So a couple of years back, we started introducing some capabilities. A couple of them are highlighted up here where you could delegate permissions to be able to change things like the greeting and things like that. What we've done with the Queues app is, first of all, we've left the permissions that we've introduced over the years. We've left those permissions there, and those do not require the Queues app. So those remain as, quote unquote, free part of Teams Phone. But what we've done is we've added a ton of additional permissions that now can be delegated via policy. So you as an IT administrator can now go and say, all right, this role out there, and I'm going to show several examples of this. This particular role out there, I want to delegate the permission for them to change the call routing, the language, the greetings, the after hours, the holidays, all that good stuff. And they can take care of it. They don't have to come and bug me unless something is broken. So it's a win-win for both users and administrators. And then the third one I wanted to point out from a functionality perspective, and if you notice on the top right here, this is a roadmap item. So this is an item that we were working on and it wasn't quite ready yet. So instead of delaying the whole Queues app, we said, well, we're going to release the main Queues app, but this functionality will follow soon. So if all goes well, around the beginning of 2025, we'll be seeing this. What you will notice is that some of the pieces of this are already in the documentation, as well as the permissions. The permissions for it are already in the policy. So it's the information is out there, and you see pieces of it. It just hasn't folded in from a GA available feature into the product. And what this functionality provides is monitor, whisper, barge, and takeover functionality. So this is a tool for supervisors to use to be able to listen in for an agent if they just want to hear what's going on. They have the ability to whisper. That is, if an agent is on the call, the supervisor can be on that call and talk, and only the agent hears the supervisor talking. So it's like a coaching mechanism. There's also a barge functionality. This is when the supervisor needs to pop into a call if there's a situation going on where they need to join, or many times it could be the agent that'll reach out to a supervisor via chat and say, hey, I need help with this call. Can you pop in and join? And then the last piece of it is a takeover. This is like in a coaching scenario where a supervisor sees something go horribly wrong and needs to boot the agent from the call and take over. Not a very common thing, but those 4 levels of functionality are included within that. All right, so very popular question. How is this licensed and what does it require? So the Queues app is essentially a Teams premium feature. So it requires a paid subscription of Teams. That means that the Teams that's out there as a consumer version does not support it. So it requires a paid version of it. We need Teams Phone either as a standalone standard Teams Phone or as part of Microsoft E5 or A5 or something like that type of entitlement. We need Teams Premium, and that is the key component of it. And then if you do need PSTN connectivity as part of it, you need calling plan or operator connect or direct routing. So that's kind of a pretty obvious one. PSTN is not required. You can use Queues app and call Queues just for internal calls. Some customers do that as part of their deployments for use cases. Now, tied to that, there's a couple of questions here that I wanted to cover that are very popular. One of them is, can I mix agents in a queue, some which are licensed and some which are not? The common use case for this is I have a number of agents that are regularly agents and taking calls, and then I hit like a busy time of year or I hit some kind of emergency and I need to find others to help take calls for that queue. And the answer there is yes, you can absolutely mix agents in a queue, some which are licensed and some which are not. So I can go and reach out, and anyone that's enabled for Teams Phone, I can add to that queue and they can begin taking calls. Now, they will not be able to have the Queues app in their Teams client because they're not licensed for it, but they can still take calls for those queues. They're still able to opt in and opt out and take calls. And then the other point related to this that comes up as a question is as a supervisor, can I monitor users that are not licensed? And the answer is yes, you can absolutely do that. There's a couple use cases for that. One is the one I just mentioned, where you're adding new agents to a queue and they're not licensed. The other use case is some customers say, like the ability for agents to see the status of others and what's going on, it's really not that important to me. I just want my agents to opt in and opt out. I don't care for them to have reporting. I don't care for them to know what's going on real time. They're always opted in when they're on shift, and I just want them to take calls. And in that case, what you can do is just license your supervisors for the Queues app. The agents can remain unlicensed. So that is definitely a valid configuration, and it's something that works for some use cases that customers have. Third popular question in here is what clients are supported? And the answer is that desktop clients are supported today. So that is the Mac and Windows clients. Now, the today word is a key word in there. We're not going to get into roadmap in this session, into any details or anything like that, but you can safely assume that we are working on versions for the web, for VDI, and also mobile iOS and Android versions of the Queues app. In fact, one that we have announced already is on Teams phone devices. So on the physical Teams phone, you will have the Queues app functionality very soon, actually, in the beginning of the year, if all goes well. So this is a picture of what it'll look like. You see the Queues app down here, and down below I've included the URL for our public roadmap. One note here, as with any roadmap item, the dates are always TBD. Something could come up that delays it. But it is good to see it for slated for January already, and I know that this is already in our beta program, so it's looking pretty good. All right, so let's talk about another piece of it that is a common question, and that is around positioning. So common question is what kind of use cases or or situations is a Queues app a good fit for? And my general answer there is that it's a good fit for your like informal, or some call it contact center light type of functionality. That is where I'm receiving voice calls. Queues app will also, and call queues, support video calls. If video is enabled, that's a part of the experience. So it's primarily voice functionality, and it's these use cases where I have these typically these smaller groups. It could be departments, it could be different groups within the organization that are handling calls for different scenarios. It could be something like a help desk. It could be something like an on-call group or something like that. So that is the primary use case that we're seeing for Queues app. Now, beyond that, there are a few other Microsoft add-ons that you could augment functionality with. So one question could be, hey, the Queues app works for me for my voice calls, but it would be nice if on my website I would be able to have like just a chat type of application tied back into generative AI, where I could point that to a knowledge source, and my customers could just go in and ask questions, like via chat interface, and get answers to frequently asked questions and things like that. And that is a case where you can use Copilot Studio, and you can leverage that to put like a widget on your website and have answers and guidance for customers there. Then there's also the agent piece of it. So what if I have a CRM system out there, and the Qs app is good enough for my agents taking calls, but I want my agents to be able to leverage like a generative AI type of question and answer, leveraging my backend CRM data. And that is where we have Copilot for Service, and you can leverage that along with the Qs app. And then last but certainly not least is a session we just had yesterday, and that is Dynamics 365 Contact Center. So that is our fully featured generative AI contact center. So the use case for Dynamics 365 Contact Center is I want a contact center that not only has voice, but can do web, can do SMS, can do email, can do social application, can do WhatsApp. It can leverage all of those channels, which the Qs app does not support. It also has native functionality built in for things like being able to distinguish functionality. To be able to provide the guidance to the agent on the customer sentiment and that kind of stuff. That is something that Qs app does not have built into it. So there's a lot of functionality within that. Things like workforce management. Those are all functionality that you see in a formal contact center. And in addition, to be able to leverage AI on top of that, and to be able to not only use Dynamics as a CRM, but it supports Salesforce as well. It supports custom CRM integrations as well. So that is our fully featured contact center. From a pricing perspective, I know this came up yesterday in the chat on the Dynamics session. There is a big difference between the left and right column here. So Qs app, part of Teams Premium, it's either $7 if you include the promotional packaging that we still have to the end of the year, or $10 per user. If you look at something like a Dynamics 365 Contact Center, that starts around the $90 or $95 per user cost, and it goes all the way up to around $200, depending on the functionality you need there. So it is a big difference both in functionality and pricing perspective. And last but not least, all of the options that I mentioned in the previous slide, these are all Microsoft native options. One thing I did want to point out is there are 30 third-party contact centers now that are out there that are certified. The links are included in this slide, and there's 7 more that are on the way. So even though I'm personally a big fan of the Qs app, and I think it serves a lot of great use cases, it's not a solution for every use case. Same thing with Dynamics 365 Contact Center. There are going to be use cases where a third-party solution, because of the industry or the part of the world or the functionality they provide, is a great option. And it's great that we have all of these options out there for customers, depending on what their needs are, to fit all of these different use cases. All right, let's take a quick break here. Actually, I'm gonna see if Nathaniel Amen or Jonathan Donald, any themes or anything from the chat. I haven't been keeping track of it. I know that there's been a lot of good questions. Anything that we want to bring up, or anything we want to talk about live?
Yeah, Miguel, shared call history. I know it's under NDA, but I just want to say for the call, there is a semi-rough date out there from the product group. If you need that date as part of your business, please reach out to your Microsoft account team or ConvergeCom CSA, and we'll work with you to get that answer as long as you have an NDA in place.
Yep, thank you, Nathaniel. Yeah, that is our most requested feature beyond the ones that are there today and the supervisor monitoring tools. That is definitely our most requested feature. It is being worked on. So if you're a customer that's under NDA, please reach out to your account team, and that also helps us to document the need for it to keep up the pressure for the feature. But it's definitely being worked on.
Yeah, and it looks like a lot of the, I'm gonna say a lot of the questions are wrapped around roadmap items. Hey, when is this coming? When is this coming right now? And I think that's, unfortunately, we're not able to do that. Just to blanket this, guys, we're not able to have those roadmap conversations because that is NDA. A lot of that is NDA right now, and we do know some things, right? But those are out on the roadmap at this point. So understand. Is limited, so you may be frustrated when we come back with you and say, hey, we can't tell you, because we really can't tell you at this point. So keep that in mind as you're asking some of these questions. Also, I know Nathaniel mentioned this a couple times. If it's a great idea, I think that's a good opportunity for you to reach out to your account team if you have an account team and get that feature request in that way, because that's a good way to be able to get it to our engineering group, right, and be able to get some of that pooled. So potentially those features could be in there. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're asking some of these questions. So.
Yeah, and I will say the way the Qs app was developed was different from a lot of the other Microsoft features of products that have come out. The product group was super collaborative with customers. We did a private preview. A lot of customers participated. If you have feedback, it's not something that will just go in backlog and probably never get implemented. The product group takes the feedback very seriously, and if we have enough customer evidence, they will absolutely implement it. So don't shy away from submitting your feature request via your Microsoft account team. The product group definitely wants to hear the feedback on where we should take the Qs app long term. And then Miguel, there's a hot topic in here for you. It might ruin your day, but when voice-enabled channels is retired next year, what is the impact to us using that? And potentially, I would think they should migrate to Qs app, but just curious on your thoughts there.
Okay, cool. Let me table that. We're kind of at the midway point here, so let me get through the deployment, and then we'll come back and talk about the voice-enabled channels. I also want to talk about, let me make a note here in case I forget. There's a couple things on the extensibility side that are coming, and one that is there already, because I saw a note there about database dips. There's some interesting stuff there for those that are interested in extensibility. So let's do that. All right. There we go. All right, so deployment. How do you deploy the Qs app? The first piece I have here in this slide is the steps to setting up a call queue. Now, we didn't do a poll in this session, but I did one similar for our customer hub group back in October, and about 60-70% of the audience was already using call queues. So I'm willing to bet that probably over half of you out there are already using call queues today. So you've already set up your call queues. The main difference, or what's new from that perspective, is on the last step of setting up a call queue. There's something called an authorized user, and we're going to talk a lot more about that now. And what changes with the Qs app now, the additional functionality you have access to, is that there are a whole lot more options. There used to be like 3 or 4 options here as part of the authorized users. Now with the new functionality, you're able to have access to about 15-20 different settings. There's a great document out there on the Learn site that covers each of those settings and which ones require Teams Premium, which ones are there today, because just like with the supervisor monitoring functionality, there are a few settings where we've gotten ahead of ourselves, and they're there as a setting in the policy, but it's the functionality that hasn't been enabled in the client yet. It's under development. Now, as far as once you have your call queues set up, as far as setting up the Queues app, this is the guide from the documentation, and it's a super easy thing to do. Main thing is you assign the licenses to the users in your organization. That's a fairly obvious one. One gotcha there that I'll bring up, and it is stated in the documentation, is once you assign those users the license, it can take up to 48 hours for the Queues app to be available. It's taken a lot less for me. It was within a few hours in my lab tenant, but I have heard for some customers it's been about a day. So just keep that in mind. The second step is assigning users to a call queue. So that's this step here with authorized users, especially if you want them to have any delegated functionality or any reporting functionality. That's something you'll need to do, and I'm gonna share a lot of details there in the next couple slides. And then the last step is optional, but it is really, really recommended, and that is for the Queues app itself. You could tell your users, hey, go out there and search for something called queues and then add it to your Teams client. But it is really recommended for you to change the Teams app policies. And for those users that are going to be leveraging the Queues app, to go and pin the app for them. That way, when they launch their Teams client, it's already there along with the chat and calls and the calendar and all that good stuff. That way, they don't even have to think about it or search for it or anything else. So definitely recommend that one. Now, let's take a look at a video with the admin experience of setting up the Queues app. What you're going to see here in this video is first is pinning the Queues app to the left-hand rail of Teams, which is that last recommended step that I mentioned. You're going to see adding authorized users to the Queues app, and then assigning those voice application policies. And then after the video, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in detail, and I'm going to show a couple real-world examples here.
Queues app for Microsoft Teams simplifies the admin experience of enabling and managing call queues and auto attendance within your organization. Once you've assigned licenses to users, you can pin Queues app to the left rail in Teams, improving discoverability and access for agents and leads. As an admin, it's easy to add and remove authorized users for call queues and auto attendance, and assign voice application policies. These policies let you manage the changes authorized users can make, including configuring welcome greetings, music on hold, queue hours, call routing rules, agent monitoring, and more. You can even adjust the types of reporting authorized users have access to, including real-time and historical metrics for agents and queues. Queues app gives you the flexibility to configure call queues based on the scope, responsibility, and permissions your teams need. Empower your customer support teams with the enhanced call queue handling of Queues app for Microsoft Teams.
All right, hopefully that was helpful in visualizing a little bit. So let's talk about the authorized users a little bit more, because that's a key concept, and that's like 90% of the work in setting all this up. So the authorized users is a concept or a configuration that allows a Teams administrator to authorize users to make changes to call queues, to auto attendance, to have reporting permissions. So this is that capability that I mentioned earlier in the presentation. You want to enable your business users to change their greetings or the holiday hours or things like that. Key point of it is that users do not have to go into the Teams Admin Center for that. We all know the Teams Admin Center is not really user-friendly. Some would argue that it's not administrator-friendly either, but it's definitely not user-friendly. So the nice thing about these authorized users and these delegated permissions is the users that have the ability to change these settings, they do that all within their Teams client. So they don't have to go to some other web page somewhere else. It's all inside their Teams client settings. And then you can have different capabilities for different users. We'll take a look at that here in an upcoming slide. So the three key steps to setting up these authorized users is to create that voice application policy. That's what you saw in the video. Then you assign a policy to the user. So that binds those permissions to the user. And then you take that user, and in your queues and in your auto attendant, you make those users authorized for that queue or auto attendant, and that binds the two together. So now I'm authorized for this particular call queue and auto attendant, and I have the permissions in my policy, and that's what I'm able to do. Now let's take a look at a kind of like a real world type of example, because a lot of times we talk about supervisors and agents, or agents and leads, and you get the impression that it's this like binary thing, right? Either I'm a supervisor and I got everything, and then I'm an agent and I have just my agent capabilities. But the reality behind that is, using these voice application policies, you can have many different types of roles that are very granular depending on what you need. So let's say I was rolling out a small like group informal contact center for my organization. And let's say in this case, I have a department manager that's like fairly technical and capable. And as an admin, I want to go ahead and just kind of give them permissions for everything. So I go and create a voice application policy. And by the way, these are only a small subset of the settings available. I just wanted to make it something that was real as a screenshot, but it was also readable, because if I put all the settings in there, we wouldn't be able to read that. So in this case, I have a department manager that I just want to give them the full permissions. So if you notice, all of these little knobs are on. They have capabilities to monitor the agents. They have the full reporting capability, right? Now, let's say there was also like a team lead with that department. That might be the person that is kind of like the most capable agent. It might be somebody that when the department manager is out, they leave in charge of running their little contact center and doing things for them. So this person, they're not as capable, and they typically they wouldn't need to change things like how calls are routed or languages or things like that. So if you notice, what we're doing here is we're only enabling a few different settings for them. And then we're in this case, we're not giving them any monitoring capabilities, but we're giving them reporting. So again, it just depends what you need here and what kind of features you want to delegate. And then the last example I have here is, many times departments have these people that are like analysts. They're good at reporting. They're good at creating all these, all these pivot tables and different reports and doing VLOOKUPs and stitching things together. So in this case, this person, I don't want them to be able to change any settings. I don't want them to be able to do any kind of monitoring of other agents or listening in on calls. But I do want to enable them to have the reporting capabilities, because they're going to go in there and they might be looking at the real-time data for the day, or they might be going in there and looking at historical reports. And by the way, you can download those reports, so you can export them as CSVs. So maybe that analyst goes in there, every couple of weeks or whatever, and downloads the monthly report. So they only have that capability. So hopefully this was useful in kind of like visualizing that in a real world perspective, and just some of the different permissions. Again, you could create as many roles here as you want. I probably wouldn't go too crazy and create more roles than you're going to be able to keep track of, but you can definitely get granular, and it's not an all or nothing type of approach to it. So now that we've talked about configuring roles for like leads and supervisors, let's take a look at what a typical lead or supervisor role might be. So what you're going to see in this video is the ability to add or remove members of a queue, configuring delegated settings. So once I've delegated those settings to a supervisor, how do they go in and do that from their team's client? You're going to see the call monitoring and coaching, which Remember, that one is a roadmap item. That's something we should see early in 2025. And then you're also going to see the reporting aspect to it.
Leading service teams requires managing schedules, training agents, and measuring performance, all of which can be incredibly challenging without the right tools. Queues app for Microsoft Teams enables service leads to manage customer call flows within Teams, improving efficiency and impact. Leads can easily add and remove members from call queues. And because Queues app is native to Teams, leads can efficiently manage agents and call experiences without leaving Teams. As a lead, you are able to configure welcome greetings, music on hold, queue hours, call routing rules, and more. Additionally, advanced controls such as monitor, whisper, barge, and takeover allow leads to silently coach agents and intervene if necessary. Queues app provides a comprehensive analytics dashboard with historical and real-time call queue data, fueling insights to improve team performance. Empower your service leads with the collaborative call handling capabilities of Queues app for Microsoft Teams.
All right. And now that we've taken a look at the supervisor side, let's take a look at one last video. Let's take a look at what the agent experience here is. So what you're going to see here is the agent ability to view statistics and what's going on with real time, opting in and out, also receiving notifications and calls. You're going to see a capability for a screen pop-up for external browser applications. That screen pop-up, by the way, is not a Teams Premium Queues app feature. That has been around since last year. So that is part of the native Teams Phone functionality, but we're showing it as part of this video. You're going to see the ability to place calls on behalf of a queue. That is a very popular feature with queues. So if I'm an agent and I'm calling somebody about something, I want to be able to place a call on behalf of my department or on behalf of the company, so that that person, when they see the caller ID, they see my company number, or if they call back, maybe somebody else can help them. They're not just calling back my personal number. And then last but not least, you'll see Copilot in there. So Copilot, for users that have the Copilot license, it can provide additional functionality within phone. This is something that if you have agents that are taking calls that are, very short calls that aren't very detailed, it's not a good fit for that. But if you have agents that are taking lengthy calls, you could think of something like a law firm or some design firm or something like that, where you're having longer, meaningful conversations, and there's action items and questions and things that need to be resolved. Maybe you need to pass that information on to somebody else that will be helping that caller, or you want to take that information and cut and paste it from Copilot and put it in some kind of CRM system or even in an email summary. Copilot is a great tool for that functionality. So let's take a look at that.
Customer engagement is the backbone of a successful organization, as quick resolution of customer questions can drive satisfaction and loyalty. Queues app for Microsoft Teams gives agents the tools to handle customer calls efficiently and collaboratively, all within Teams. Agents can easily view statistics for specific call queues and opt in based upon their availability. Call notifications within Teams alert agents of customer calls. Once calls are answered, Teams Phone can be configured to show relevant customer information from your CRM in a browser pop-out, adding valuable context for the agent. Agents can place outbound calls on behalf of a call queue, so they can show up as a team for customers. With Copilot and Teams Phone, you can further enhance the agent experience, providing insights and next steps, making consultative transfers a breeze. Empower your agents with the collaborative call handling capabilities of Queues app for Microsoft Teams.
All right, good timing. So let's see. Let's hit on resources, and then I'll talk about the two topics that I mentioned, and we'll open it up for any other Q&A. So a couple of things in here, just general user guide. the 3 videos that you saw, these are available on YouTube, so you can have the link here. Those are useful sometimes if you have like a business user and you're an admin and they want to know more about, hey, how's this thing going to work? Or what are the capabilities that are possible within the Qs app? Or even once you have it, if you're going to use those little videos as a training video, they're nice and short. And as they talk about the feature, they're actually showing how to use it on the client. And then the other 2 are Visio templates. So if you're going to have a more complex setup and you want to document those just for your own internal or company documentation, we do have templates that are out there that'll trigger a download of a Visio file. And then there's additional resources here in terms of getting started. One that I'll call out that I just heard about this week, for those of you familiar with Fast Track, or if not, you can check it out. So Fast Track is a group within Microsoft that will provide guidance and assistance for customers that have, I think it's over 150 users, for enabling functionality within Microsoft 365. That has always included auto attendant and call queues. And now they specifically added the Qs app to their documentation and to their guidance. So they won't do like hands-on configuration for you, but if you have questions around guidance, best practices, things like that, Fast Track will help with those engagements. So with that, I think that wraps it up for the main piece of it. Let me talk about 2 things here. One is the voice-enabled channels. So we've had a functionality in Teams for quite a while now called voice-enabled channels. And that was the ability to have a call queue deliver calls to a channel within Teams. And then within that channel, there was a little tab on top if you went to the channel as an agent or a supervisor called calls. And within that tab, you would have call history. You could opt in and out. You could see the status of others. You could see if voicemails were left. We announced a couple weeks back that functionality is going to be deprecated. Now, the biggest challenge / confusion that I've heard around this, and part of it is our own fault in the messaging, is that the whole thing is going away. So one very key piece to understand is that after we deprecate that functionality, you will still be able to have a call queue deliver calls to a channel. So within the call queue configuration, you go in there today and you can send calls to specific users. You can send it to a Microsoft 365 group, or you can send those calls to a channel. That functionality will remain there. That is not going away. So there's a lot of customers that leverage that because it just makes it easy. Like I have this team and within the channel, I have all my users that I'm going to send calls to, and then people can manage the channel. It was kind of a workaround before the Qs app so that my business users could just put people in that channel and manage who's receiving those calls or put people in that team. So what is going away is that calls tab within the queue. Now, almost all of that functionality that existed within the calls tab to see the call history, to be able to opt in and out as a user, to be able to see the calls that went to voicemail, all that functionality will remain in the Teams client. It is in different parts of the client. So there is a document that we have. It's available to account teams that has nice visual representations of that, kind of like a before and after. So that is the key point there. The one case where you will need the Qs app is if you want your supervisors or agents to see the opt-in and opt-out status of others. So in that case, that functionality will require the Qs app. What we did find in our reporting is that almost all, great majority of customers were leveraging the voice-enabled channels as just a destination for sending calls, to distribute calls within the call queues. And that piece, again, is not going away. Very few users were actually going into the channel and going into that little calls tab, which is the piece that is being deprecated. So hopefully that's helpful from that regard. One other quick thing that I wanted to mention is Teams extensibility. So there's a feature coming up. I put a screenshot and a link to the public roadmap, where you'll be able to have, within a PSTN call, you'll be able to have a Teams app as a little tab. That functionality had only been previously available for meetings, and that'll become available now for calls, or for PSTN calls. So that is a way to leverage external data like a CRM system. You would have to either create your own Teams app, or you would have to work with an ISV or a vendor that creates an app that you can leverage. There are a few ISVs out there that are creating apps already for their products. So you'll see that probably around the time that it goes GA. The planned general availability for it is in January. So that's going to be one way to leverage external data. And then the last thing I wanted to mention real quick, because there was a question in the chat about doing a database dip. There's functionality out there called Azure Communication Services. It's an Azure service, but it tightly integrates into Teams for interoperability. So with Azure Communication Services, you are able to take in calls and have complete control of them from a code perspective, right? Like write your own application for it. And you are able to send via the Teams interrupt feature. You are able to send those calls to auto attendants. You're able to send the calls to call queues. You're able to send the calls to individual users if you'd like to. So that is one way that you could accomplish something like a database dip with Teams. Let me see if I grab that real quick. So with that, let me open it up for any last minute questions. I know we're coming down to the last couple minutes here.
Yeah, time is coming. Just a minute.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I know there was one question that James was just asking about, the whole deprecation piece and what's going to happen with the agents, and are they going to be able to still opt in and opt out? Yes, they're still going to be able to opt in and opt out, James. It's just going to be, it's not going to be readily available inside that channel where it was before. It's going to be going into the settings, going into the call tab, going in that way to be able to do that opt in, opt out. But still, that functionality is not going away. It's still going to be there.
Yep, just in a different location.
Yep.
All right.
Nathaniel, did you see any other questions that we wanted to bring up?
There was
Amen.
one I want to get answered. It was around licensing, Miguel, around, okay, we see Microsoft moving things like Q's app into Teams Premium. Will Q's features, like all the base level features that our customers have been using up until Q's app, will that be moved behind Premium? Will any of the Q's features be moved behind Premium?
I can't provide like a definite answer that'll stick around forever, but I'll share from everything I've seen. And in fact, you can see a little bit of that with like the delegated settings, the delegated settings that we had there before the Q's app existed and the premium licensing for it existed. We left those alone. We have in fact introduced features. We recently introduced a callback functionality, and we introduced it outside of the Q's app. I know we have additional call queue functionality coming up for the beginning of the year that will also not require Teams Premium. So at least from all the signs I'm seeing, the functionality that was there before is remaining there, and we will be making enhancements to call queues that will not require the Q's app specifically. But also that there are a ton of other enhancements coming to Q's app itself that'll fall under that umbrella. So you'll see both moving forward there.
Thanks, Miguel.
All right, let's bring it home, Don.
I think so. I think it's time. So thank you,
All right.
Miguel. That
Thanks.
was amazing as always.
Amazing,
And
great stuff.
thank you everybody for all the questions.